Before dawn breaks over the 7 hills, a single lamp flickers to life in a modest apartment near the Tiber. The flame casts dancing shadows across clay walls. In the darkness, a merchant named Marcus Fabius Severus opens his eyes for the last time in Rome. He will not see this city again for 3 years, perhaps never. The journey he begins today will carry him across 8,000 miles of desert, mountain, and plain. From the marble forums of the Eternal City to the jade gates of distant Serica, the land Romans call the country of silk. Marcus counts his coins in the lamplight. 20 gold aurae. His entire fortune, transformed into portable wealth. Each coin bears the stern profile of Emperor Hadrian, dead now for 8 years. The gold feels heavy in his palm, heavy with possibility, heavy with risk. In Rome, this gold might buy a small shop, a modest living. But if he can carry it to the ends of the earth and trade it for silk, that miraculous fabric that flows like water and weighs almost nothing, he might return a wealthy man, if he returns at all. The question that will follow him across continents is simple, ancient, universal. What drives a person to leave everything they know and walk toward the edge of the world? Over the next 2 hours, we will walk with Marcus and countless others like him along the greatest trade route in human history. We will feel the burning sun of the Syrian desert and the knife-edge cold of mountain passes where the air grows thin. We will taste the dust of caravans, hear the babel of a dozen languages in market squares, smell the spices and incense that flowed between worlds. We will encounter wonders that challenged ancient understanding. Cities that rose from sand like miracles, towers that touched the sky, peoples whose customs seemed drawn from dreams. The Silk Road was never a single road. No ancient highway department maintained it. No emperor commanded its construction. It was instead a web of paths, a network of possibilities, connecting oasis to oasis, city to city, empire to empire. The routes shifted like sand, with the winds of war and peace. But the desire that drew travelers along these paths remained constant, the hunger for what lay beyond the horizon, for goods that existed nowhere else, for stories to carry home, for transformation. Marcus knows the route only in fragments, gathered from other merchants in the wine shops near the Forum. He knows that to reach Serica, he must first cross the Mediterranean to Syria. From Syria, the road runs east through territories controlled by Rome's eternal rival, the Parthian Empire. Beyond Parthia lie lands even Romans know only as names whispered by caravan drivers: Sogdia, the Fergana Valley, the Kingdom of Kashgar. And beyond even these, past deserts that drink men's lives and mountains that scrape the belly of heaven, lies the source of silk. No Roman has ever completed this journey and returned to tell of it with certainty. The silk comes through intermediaries, passed from merchant to merchant, its price multiplying with each exchange. Romans have never seen the trees on which they imagine silk must grow. They have never walked the streets of Serica's capital. The empire at the end of the road exists in Roman imagination as a mirror. Another great civilization, impossibly distant, equally convinced of its own supremacy. The Han Chinese know Rome only as Da Qin, the Great Qin, a land of gold and glass and strange customs at the western edge of the world. Marcus will be one of the few to bridge this gap. But first, he must reach the harbor. The Mediterranean in early summer is a highway of blue. For 3,000 years, this sea has connected civilizations, carrying not just goods, but ideas, religions, technologies, diseases. Marcus boards a grain ship bound for Antioch, the great city of Syria. The ship is massive by ancient standards. Over 100 feet long, its hull curved and deep to carry Egyptian wheat to feed Rome's 1,000,000 inhabitants. But on the return journey, there is room for passengers willing to pay. The crossing takes 12 days. 12 days of watching the sun rise from water and set into water. 12 days of the ship's gentle rocking, the creak of timber, the snap of linen sails. The other passengers are a portrait of empire, Syrian merchants returning home, a Greek physician seeking opportunity in the east, 2 Roman officers assigned to a legion garrison, an Egyptian priest of Isis traveling to establish a new temple. At night, they gather on deck beneath stars so thick they seem to pool like milk across the darkness. The physician, whose name is Alexander, speaks of the world beyond Rome. He has traveled to Persia before, to the great medical schools where Greek knowledge mingles with ancient Eastern wisdom. He tells Marcus what to expect. Antioch is easy, Alexander says. It is almost Rome. Roman governors, Roman law, Roman baths. But beyond Antioch, you enter another world. The Parthians hate us, though they trade with us. Their empire is vast but fractured. Rival princes, shifting alliances. You will need to join a caravan for protection. Alone, the desert will kill you. Bandits will kill you. The sun will kill you. Marcus asks about Serica. Alexander shakes his head. I have never met anyone who has been there. I have met men who claimed to have been there. The silk comes west, but knowledge does not. Some say the people there are giants. Others say they are peaceful and refined, that they write with brushes instead of styluses, that they worship their ancestors as gods. Some say their empire is older than Rome, larger than Rome. I do not know what is true. The conversation drifts to philosophy, to why men undertake such journeys. The priest speaks of spiritual seeking. The officers speak of duty. But Marcus speaks truth. I want to see it, the world. I want to know if the stories are real. And yes, I want to return wealthy. But more than that, I want to return changed. I want to return knowing things that no one else in Rome knows. Antioch rises from the coast, like a vision of marble and gold. With a population of 250,000, it is the 3rd largest city in the empire, surpassed only by Rome itself and Alexandria. The great colonnaded street runs straight through the city's heart, 4 miles of covered walkways lined with shops selling everything imaginable. The street is wide enough for 2 wagons to pass while pedestrians browse in shade. Above the city, the slopes of Mount Silpius are dotted with villas where the wealthy escape summer heat. But Marcus does not come to Antioch for luxury. He comes to disappear into the city's eastern quarter, where Syrian traders maintain connections with the Parthian Empire beyond. Here, in cramped offices above shops, the real business of the Silk Road begins. To understand what draws Marcus eastward, we must understand what makes silk precious beyond measure. In Rome, silk is worth its weight in gold, literally. A pound of silk costs a pound of gold. Only the wealthiest can afford garments of pure silk. Most silk fabric in Rome is actually silk woven with linen or wool to stretch the precious thread. But silk is more than expensive. It is impossible. No one in the Mediterranean world understands how it is made. Roman scholars debate whether it grows on trees, is combed from special sheep, or is somehow woven by exotic insects. Pliny the Elder writes in his Natural History that silk comes from forests, where trees have leaves with white hairs which people card and spin. He is wrong. But the truth is equally strange. Silk is made by caterpillars, specifically the caterpillars of Bombyx mori, the domesticated silk moth. Each caterpillar spins a cocoon from a single thread of silk that can measure 3,000 feet long. In China, sericulture, silk farming, has been practiced for at least 3,000 years. It is a carefully guarded secret. Anyone caught trying to smuggle silkworm eggs or cocoons out of China faces execution. The monopoly on silk production has made China wealthy beyond Roman comprehension. The silk that reaches Rome has passed through dozens of hands. Chinese merchants bring it west to the desert outposts along China's frontier. There, traders from the Kushan Empire, Sogdia and Parthia purchase it. It moves west through the great oasis cities of Central Asia. Sogdian merchants are the true masters of this trade. They speak multiple languages, maintain networks across continents, and mark up the price at each stage. By the time silk reaches Roman territory, it has traveled 5,000 miles, and its price has multiplied 100-fold. Marcus spends 3 weeks in Antioch, learning the business of long-distance trade. He meets with a Syrian merchant named Zabdas, who has made the journey east twice before. Zabdas is a practical man who speaks 4 languages and trusts no one. "Your gold is worthless," Zabdas tells him bluntly. "Not worthless, but wrong. Roman coins are heavy. You cannot carry enough to make the journey profitable. Here is what you do. You trade your gold for goods that are valuable in the East. Glass. The Romans make the finest glass in the world. The Parthians desire it. The Sogdians desire it. Even the Seres desire it, I am told. Glass is light enough to carry, valuable enough to trade. You buy glass here, carry it east, trade it for silk at the source, return. Simple." Nothing about this will be simple. Marcus knows this, but he takes the advice. He trades his 20 gold aurae for glass vessels, bowls, cups, small bottles, manufactured in Syrian glassworks. The Syrian glassmakers have perfected the art of glassblowing, a technique only about a century old. They can create vessels of breathtaking delicacy and beauty, in colors from deep blue to emerald green to amber. These vessels, wrapped carefully in wool and packed in baskets, become Marcus's trade goods. But Marcus cannot travel alone. Zabdas explains that a caravan is forming. A Palmyrene merchant named Septimius Odaenathus is organizing a journey to Merv, the great city at the edge of the Parthian Empire. From Merv, if the gods are willing, Marcus might find another caravan heading further east. Palmyrenes are born traders, Zabdas says. They control the desert routes. They pay protection money to the Bedouin tribes, to the Parthian princes, to everyone who matters. Under Palmyrene protection, you have a chance. Without it, you have none. Marcus pays his fee, 2 gold aurae, to join the caravan. He is given a date, 2 weeks hence, when they will depart from Palmyra itself, the great caravan city 300 miles east across the Syrian desert. The Syrian desert is not the endless sand dunes of imagination. It is a rocky wasteland of stone and scrub, baked by sun, swept by wind. The temperature during summer days can reach 120 degrees. At night, it can drop to near freezing. Water is scarce. The route from Antioch to Palmyra follows a series of springs and wells, traveling by night when possible to avoid the worst heat. Marcus joins a smaller group making this preliminary journey, a dozen merchants and their servants guarded by 6 armed Palmyrene cavalrymen. The guards wear loose robes and cloth wrapped around their heads for protection against sun and dust. They carry composite bows and curved swords. They are descendants of Arabs and Aramaeans who have made this desert their domain. The journey takes 8 days. 8 days of monotonous landscape broken by the drama of survival. Each spring or well becomes an event, a cause for relief and celebration. The travelers learn to recognize the signs of water from a distance, a slight green tinge to the rock, the presence of certain plants, the flight paths of birds. At one well, they find the corpses of 3 travelers who did not make it. The bodies are desiccated by the heat, preserved like leather. No one knows who they were. The Palmyrene guards dig shallow graves and pile stones over them to keep scavengers away. It is a reminder that the desert is unforgiving, that the journey Marcus has undertaken claims lives routinely, unremarkably. But then, on the 9th day, as the sun rises, they see it. Palmyra. Palmyra rises from the desert like a fever dream. The first thing visible is the palm groves, thousands of date palms fed by the springs that give the city its name. Then the walls appear, the towers, the temples, and then the great colonnaded street reveals itself, over half a mile of white limestone columns marching in perfect ranks, creating a covered arcade that seems to extend to infinity. Palmyra in the 2nd century CE is at the height of its power. The city has grown wealthy beyond imagination by controlling trade between Rome and the East. Palmyrene merchants operate trading stations from Rome to India. They speak Latin, Greek, Aramaic, and Parthian. They navigate the complex politics of being caught between 2 superpowers, Rome to the west, Parthia to the east, by making themselves indispensable to both. The city's wealth is visible everywhere. The Great Temple of Bel dominates the skyline, a massive structure combining Roman, Greek, and Persian architectural elements. Wealthy merchants have erected elaborate tombs outside the city, tower tombs that rise like small fortresses, decorated with sculptures and inscriptions boasting of the deceased's trading accomplishments. Marcus spends 6 weeks in Palmyra, waiting for Odaenathus's caravan to assemble. These are not wasted weeks. He learns, he observes. He begins to understand how the long-distance trade actually works. Palmyrene merchants rarely complete the entire journey themselves. Instead, they operate in stages. A Palmyrene merchant might take goods to Ctesiphon, the Parthian capital. There, he sells to a Parthian merchant who takes them to Merv. At Merv, a Sogdian merchant purchases them and carries them further east to Kashgar or Samarkand. There, another merchant takes them into China itself. On the return journey, the process reverses. This system of intermediaries means that silk becomes exponentially more expensive with each transfer, but it also means that no single merchant needs to risk the entire journey. But some do. Odaenathus is such a man. He is perhaps 50 years old, grizzled and lean, with eyes that have seen the edges of the world. He has made the journey to Merv a dozen times. He speaks of going further, though he has not yet dared. "Why do you want to reach Serica?" Odaenathus asks Marcus one evening over wine. "To see it," Marcus replies. "To know." Odaenathus nods slowly. "There is a madness in that wanting. I have seen it before. You will not be satisfied with Merv, though Merv is more magnificent than Rome. You will not be satisfied with Samarkand, though Samarkand's bazaars sell wonders from 100 lands. You will want to go further, always further, until you reach the edge. And when you stand at the edge, you will discover there is no edge. The world continues. It always continues. That is the terrible truth we merchants learn, that the horizon is a lie. There is always something beyond. The caravan that finally departs Palmyra numbers 130 people, 25 merchants, 80 camels, 25 camel drivers, and 30 armed guards. They carry glass from Syria, purple dye from Tyre, coral from the Mediterranean, wine in amphorae, olive oil, metalwork, and Roman coins. They will trade these for goods from the East, silk, of course, but also spices, precious stones, incense, paper, and strange medicines. They travel east into the rising sun, east across 500 miles of desert to the Euphrates River, east into Parthian territory, into a world where Roman power is distant and law means something different. The Parthian Empire in the 2nd century CE is vast but fragmented. Unlike Rome with its centralized imperial government, Parthia is a confederation of semi-independent kingdoms, held together by the Arsacid dynasty through a combination of military power, strategic marriages, and the collection of tribute. The Parthian King of Kings rules from Ctesiphon, but his authority over distant provinces is often more theoretical than real. This creates both danger and opportunity for merchants. Danger because there is no single authority to appeal to, no uniform law to protect travelers. A merchant who has permission to travel through one lord's territory may be considered a trespasser in the next. Opportunity because the lack of central control means that everything is negotiable. Every border can be crossed with the right payment. Every rule can be bent with the right connections. The caravan reaches the Euphrates at a crossing point where a small settlement has grown up around the ferry service. The river is wide here, perhaps 200 feet across, flowing with the slow power of accumulated water from distant mountains. The ferrymen are Armenians who have operated this crossing for generations. They charge in Roman silver, Parthian drachmas, or trade goods. They are neutral in all conflicts, protected by mutual agreement of all powers because everyone needs to cross the river. Crossing takes 2 days. The camels go first, nervous at the unsteady raft but controlled by experienced drivers. The merchants follow with their goods, watching anxiously as their fortunes bob across the current. 2 camels panic and have to be calmed. One bale of goods falls into the water but is retrieved quickly. By the time the last guard crosses, everyone is exhausted but relieved. On the eastern bank, they have left Rome's world behind. The Euphrates in the 2nd century marks an approximate border, though borders here are fluid. They have entered the domain of the Arsacids, Parthian territory. The landscape changes. The desert gives way to the ancient farmlands of Mesopotamia, the land between rivers. This is some of the oldest agricultural land in the world, continuously cultivated for 5,000 years. Irrigation canals built by the Babylonians and Assyrians still carry water to fields of wheat and barley. Date palms line the roads. Villages of mud brick houses cluster around wells. But the grandeur is faded. This land, which once supported empires, is now a backwater in the Parthian realm. The great cities of antiquity, Babylon, Nineveh, are ruins or shadows of their former selves. Babylon's walls still stand, but the city within them is largely abandoned. The Tower of Babel, which Alexander the Great planned to rebuild, is a crumbling ziggurat where shepherds graze their flocks. The caravan passes through this ancient landscape for 3 weeks, moving from village to village. At each stop, Odenathus negotiates passage with local authorities, sometimes a Parthian official, sometimes a tribal leader, sometimes a local strongman who controls the territory in practice, if not in theory. Always there are payments to be made, gifts to be given, courtesies to be observed. They encounter their first serious danger near the ruins of Babylon. A group of mounted warriors appears on the horizon, perhaps 20 riders, moving fast. The caravan guards immediately form a defensive line, bows ready. Odenathus rides forward alone, unarmed, to parley. From a distance, Marcus watches the negotiation. He cannot hear the words, but he can read the body language. There is tension, then laughter, then gestures. Money changes hands. After an hour, Odaenathus returns. "Bandits," he says simply. "They wanted tribute. I paid. It is cheaper than fighting. If we fought, even if we won, we would lose men and camels. These are practical men. They take reasonable payment and let caravans pass. It is almost a tax, almost a protection service. They only attack those who refuse to pay or those too weak to defend themselves." This is the reality of the Silk Road. Violence is always present, but it is usually economical. The merchants need the routes to stay open. The bandits need the merchants to keep coming. An equilibrium develops, brutal but functional. Each night, the caravan makes camp. The camels are arranged in a rough circle, providing a living barrier. Fires are lit. Food is prepared. Guards take shifts watching the darkness. In the firelight, men from different worlds share food and stories. Marcus learns that the world is more diverse than he imagined. One of the merchants is from Alexandria, another from Petra. There is a Jewish trader from Judea, an Armenian, 2 Syrians, a Greek from Ephesus. There are Palmyrines, of course, but also 3 Parthians who are traveling west to Roman territory to purchase goods to bring back. One merchant claims to be from India, from a land beyond the Parthian Empire, though he is vague about details. At night, they take turns telling stories of places they have been. The Indian merchant speaks of a great river called the Ganges, of cities with populations in the millions, of a king who commanded 80,000 elephants. The Jewish merchant speaks of the destroyed temple in Jerusalem, of prophecies and ancient wisdom. The Greek speaks of Ephesus before it was ravaged by earthquake, of the great library, of the temple of Artemis. Marcus tells them of Rome, of the Forum crowded with 100,000 people on festival days, of the Colosseum where gladiators fight before audiences of 50,000, of the aqueducts that bring clean water from mountains 40 miles away, of the Pantheon with its dome that seems to float without support, open to the sky. They listen politely, but Marcus realizes they are not impressed. They have seen wonders too. Rome is magnificent, but so is Antioch, so is Alexandria, so is Ctesiphon, which they are approaching now. The world is full of magnificence. Perhaps that is the lesson. That glory is not unique. That humanity builds its monuments everywhere it gathers. After 2 more weeks of travel, they see the twin cities of Seleucia and Ctesiphon rising from the plain where the Tigris River flows. Ctesiphon is the winter capital of the Parthian Empire, home to the King of Kings. The city is dominated by a single structure that seems to defy physics, the Tak Kasra, the great arch of Ctesiphon. This vaulted hall stands 85 feet high and is spanned by a single arch of baked brick. No internal supports, no columns, just the arch itself, a triumph of engineering that will stand for another 14 centuries. Seleucia, across the river, is older, a Hellenistic city built by Alexander's successors 3 centuries earlier. It retains a Greek character, colonnaded streets, Greek temples, Greek theater, but is now thoroughly mixed with Persian and Babylonian elements. The population of the 2 cities combined exceeds 400,000. This is a metropolis to rival Rome itself. The caravan does not enter the cities. Merchants establish camp outside the walls in the commercial district where foreign traders are permitted. Here, in a space half market and half camp, goods from across the known world change hands. Marcus sees goods he has never imagined. From India, pepper, cinnamon, ginger, and cardamom. Spices that Romans prize almost as highly as silk. Also from India, cotton cloth, diamonds, sapphires, and strange medicines made from tree bark and roots. From Arabia, frankincense and myrrh, the incense that burns in every temple from Rome to China. From Central Asia, furs from animals he cannot identify, jade carved into ornaments, horses of a breed that Parthians claim sweat blood, and silk. Not the finished cloth that reaches Rome, but raw silk thread wound on spools. Hundreds of pounds of it, representing thousands of silkworm cocoons, representing months of labor by Chinese workers Marcus will never meet. The silk merchants are Sogdians, Central Asian traders who control much of the East-West trade. They are bearded men in felt hats and richly embroidered robes. They speak a Persian language, but write in an Aramaic script. They are neither Parthian nor Chinese, but something else, products of the great mixing that occurs along the Silk Road. Odenathus introduces Marcus to one of these Sogdians, a merchant named Wirkak. Wirkak examines Marcus's glass carefully, holding each piece to the light, checking for flaws. He nods approvingly. Roman glass is good, Wirkak says in accented Greek. In Samarkand, in Bukhara, wealthy men want Roman glass. They say it is clearer than Persian glass, more colorful than Chinese glass. Your pieces are fine. I can offer you silk for them. Or if you want to continue east, I can offer you letters of introduction to merchants in Merv and Samarkand. With such letters, you will be treated as a trading partner, not a stranger. But if you take the letters, you must continue. You cannot sell here. You must take your goods to my colleagues in the east, you see? Marcus understands. He is being offered entry into a network, but the price is commitment. He must trust that these distant merchants will treat him fairly, will not simply take his goods and send him away. But this is how the Silk Road works, on trust, on relationships built over decades, on the knowledge that cheating a single merchant today means losing access to all future trade. I will continue east, Marcus says, to Merv, perhaps beyond. Wirkak smiles. Perhaps beyond, yes. I think you will go beyond. You have the look, the madness, as Odenathus calls it. I will write the letters. But I warn you, beyond Merv, you leave civilization. You enter lands that change with the wind. The Kushan Empire is vast but unstable. Local kings make war on each other. The mountain passes are controlled by tribes who owe loyalty to no one. And beyond even that, if you reach beyond that, you enter the desert that the Chinese call the Taklamakan. The name means go in and you do not come out, but silk comes from beyond that desert. So if you seek the source, that is where you must go. The caravan remains near Ctesiphon for 3 weeks. Goods are traded, deals are negotiated, alliances are formed. Marcus sells half his glass to a Parthian merchant for silver. He trades some for spices. He saves his finest pieces for the east. He receives Wirkak's letters, written in Sogdian, which he cannot read, but which he is told will open doors. During this time, Marcus explores the cities. He visits Seleucus Theatre, built in Greek style, where Persian plays are now performed. He visits the baths, which are Roman in design but decorated with Persian motifs. He visits the fire temples where Zoroastrian priests tend flames that have burned continuously for centuries, representing the eternal struggle between light and darkness, good and evil. He realizes that no culture he encounters is pure. Everything is mixed. The Parthians use Greek science and Roman engineering. The Persians worship Zoroastrian gods, but incorporate elements of Babylonian astrology and Greek philosophy. The Jews and Christians who live here blend their beliefs with local customs. The world is not divided into separate civilizations, but is rather a continuum, a spectrum where each culture shades into the next. The journey from Ctesiphon to Merv is 1,000 miles. 1,000 miles that cross from Mesopotamian plains into Persian highlands, through the territories of various Parthian vassals, into the northeastern reaches of the empire where Persian influence fades and other powers rise. The caravan that continues east from Ctesiphon is smaller, only about 60 people. Some merchants have completed their journey here. Others, like Marcus, continue. Odaenathus continues as well. His goal is Merv, where he will sell his remaining goods and purchase goods to carry back west. He invites Marcus to travel with him. "You are lucky," Odaenathus says, "or unlucky, depending on how you see it. The route is safe now, safe by Silk Road standards anyway. The Parthian king has made peace with the Kushans. The mountain tribes have been paid off, the season is good. In another year, in another season, this journey might be impossible. War might close the route. Drought might make the deserts uncrossable. This is your moment. Take it." They travel northeast, entering the Zagros Mountains. These are not the highest mountains in the world, but they are formidable. Steep ridges, narrow passes, sudden storms. The caravans follow ancient paths that wind through valleys and climb over passes at elevations where breathing becomes difficult. The mountain passes are dangerous in ways different from the desert. In the desert, the danger is exposure, heat, thirst, distance. In the mountains, the danger is sudden. A startled camel can slip on loose stone and tumble down a cliff, taking its load and perhaps its driver with it. Storms can arrive with no warning, bringing rain that turns trails to mud or snow that obscures all landmarks. Avalanches are rare but deadly. They cross 3 major passes over 2 weeks. At the third pass, they encounter a group of travelers coming from the east, a small caravan returning to Parthian territory. The groups camp together at the pass summit, sharing news and information. The eastbound travelers are hungry for information about conditions ahead. The westbound travelers bring news that makes Marcus's pulse quicken. The route is clear all the way to Kashgar. There are no major conflicts. The Kushan Empire is stable under its current king. A merchant with proper documentation and sufficient guards can reach Chinese territory. It is possible. The thing Marcus barely allowed himself to hope for is possible. That night, in the thin, cold air of the pass, Marcus cannot sleep. He lies wrapped in blankets, watching stars that seem close enough to touch. He thinks about Rome, which already seems like something from another life. He has been traveling for 4 months. He is perhaps halfway to his goal. He could turn back now, return with the spices and trade goods he has acquired, make a modest profit, live a safe life. But he knows he will not turn back. Odaenathus was right. There is a madness in him. The madness of wanting to see what lies beyond the next horizon. The madness that has driven explorers and traders and wanderers since humans first looked at a distant mountain and wondered what lay on the other side. Descending the eastern slopes of the Zagros, they enter a different world. The landscape becomes drier, harsher. They are approaching the great deserts of Central Asia. But first, they must pass through the heartland of ancient Persia. They pass through territories that were once the heart of the Persian Empire. Names from ancient history appear: Ecbatana, Ra'agay, Hekatompelos. These cities, which once commanded empires, are now provincial centers in the Parthian realm, yet they remain impressive, showing traces of the glory that was Persia. At Regi, the caravan pauses for a week. The city sits at the foot of mountains on the edge of the great salt desert that dominates central Persia. It is a wealthy city, grown rich from controlling the trade routes and from the nearby mines that produce silver and copper. Marcus visits the city's Zoroastrian fire temple, where priests maintain a sacred flame said to have burned since the time of the prophet Zoroaster himself, 7 centuries earlier. The priests welcome visitors and explain their beliefs, that the world is a battleground between Ahura Mazda, the wise lord of light, and Angra Mainyu, the spirit of darkness and chaos, that humans must choose, through good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, to support the light, that the world is good and should be celebrated, not rejected. The concepts are foreign to Marcus, yet familiar. Rome has temples to 100 gods. The empire is increasingly Christian, Jewish. Followers of Isis and Mithras worship side by side. But this idea of cosmic dualism, of a universe defined by the struggle between opposing forces, resonates. Perhaps because he feels it in himself. The pull between safety and adventure, between the known and the unknown, between returning to Rome and continuing east. From Ragai, the route turns sharply east, skirting the northern edge of the Great Salt Desert. This is the most desolate stretch yet. The land is harsh, water is scarce, settlements are few. The ancient Persians built a system of underground canals called qanats to tap groundwater and bring it to the surface. Without these qanats, this land would be uninhabitable. The caravan follows the qanat line for days, stopping at small settlements that exist solely because of the water flowing beneath their feet. These are tough communities, living on the edge of possible survival. The people are friendly but wary. They have learned that every stranger might be a threat, that every caravan might bring disease or bandits along with trade goods. But they also need the caravans. They need the goods that flow along the Silk Road. They need salt, metal tools, cloth, spices, luxuries from distant lands. They pay for these with their own goods. Dried fruit, wool, carpets woven in traditional patterns, locally mined minerals. At one small settlement, Marcus witnesses something that will stay with him for life. A family gathers to celebrate the coming of age of their daughter. She is perhaps 14, wrapped in brilliantly colored cloth, her hands decorated with henna patterns. The entire village, perhaps 30 people, participates in the celebration. There is music played on string instruments and drums. There is dancing. There is roasted meat, a rare luxury. There is joy. Marcus realizes that these people, living on the edge of a desert, know a completeness he has never known. Their world is small. They may live and die without traveling more than 100 miles from where they were born. But their lives are full. They have family, community, tradition, meaning. His journey, crossing continents, seeking wonders, may be less meaningful than their simple celebration in a desert village whose name he will forget within days. It is a humbling thought, but it does not make him want to stop. It makes him want to continue with greater appreciation, with greater respect for all the different ways humans have found to live meaningful lives. After 6 weeks of travel from Ctesiphon, they reach Merv. The sight takes Marcus's breath away. Merv is not just a city. It is a jewel, an oasis of civilization in the midst of desert, a place where learning, commerce, and culture have flourished for over 2,000 years. The city in the 2nd century CE is at its peak, one of the largest cities in the world, with a population approaching 500,000. The walls of Merv are massive, 40 feet high, 20 feet thick, extending for miles. These are not just military fortifications, but expressions of ambition, of the desire to create a lasting mark on the world. Within the walls, the city is a maze of streets, markets, palaces, libraries, and gardens. The Parthian kings maintain a summer palace here. The wealthy have estates with gardens fed by sophisticated irrigation. The markets sell goods from India, China, Russia, Persia, and beyond. Odenathus brings the caravan to the merchants' quarter, a district where foreign traders are welcomed and regulations are relatively relaxed. Here, Marcus will spend 3 months waiting for the right opportunity to continue east. In Merv, Marcus encounters for the first time traders who have actually been to China. They are Sogdians, of course. The Sogdians dominate the eastern portion of the Silk Road, just as the Palmyrines dominate the western portion. They speak Chinese. They understand Chinese customs. They maintain trading stations in Chinese cities. One of these Sogdians, a merchant named Manish, becomes Marcus's guide to Eastern geography and customs. Manish has made the journey to Chang'an, the Chinese capital, 3 times. He speaks of China with a mixture of admiration and frustration. The Chinese are civilized beyond anything you know, Manish tells Marcus. Their capital makes Rome look like a village. Their emperor commands armies in the millions. They have built a wall across their northern frontier that stretches for thousands of miles. They have invented paper, thin sheets made from plant fibers, smoother than papyrus, more durable than parchment. They write with brushes dipped in ink, creating characters that are like pictures. Each character represents a word or concept. They claim their writing system has been used for 2,000 years, maybe more. But, Manish continues, they are also arrogant. They believe they are the center of the world. They call their empire the Middle Kingdom because they believe it sits between heaven and earth. They call all foreigners barbarians, even us, even though we bring them goods they desire. They tolerate us because they want our horses, our glass, our amber, our coral. But they do not consider us equals. You, a Roman? To them, you will be a curiosity, a barbarian from the far west who has somehow learned to wear clothes and speak languages. Marcus asks about the dangers of the journey ahead. Manish's expression becomes serious. The route from here to China crosses the worst terrain on earth. First, you cross the Oxus River and enter the lands of the Kushans. The Kushan Empire is vast, from the Oxus to India, but it is not unified. Different regions obey different kings. You need proper documentation and guards. Then you climb into the mountains, the Pamirs, the roof of the world. These mountains make the Zagros look like hills. You climb to heights where there is no air, where your head pounds, where you feel drunk, though you have consumed no wine. If you survive the mountains, you descend into the Tarim Basin, a depression surrounded by mountains. And in the Tarim Basin is the Taklamakan Desert. The Taklamakan, Manish says, is death. It is sand. Only sand. No water, no plants, no life. The desert is ringed by oases, Kashgar, Khotan, Kucha, Turpan. The Silk Road follows these oases around the desert's edge, either north or south, never through the middle. Those who try to cross the center never return. The desert swallows them. The sand covers everything. Even their bones disappear. Despite these warnings, or perhaps because of them, Marcus knows he will continue. He has come too far to turn back. He has seen too much to return to Rome without seeing more. He makes arrangements to join a Sogdian caravan heading east in 2 months' time. Those 2 months in Merv are transformative. Marcus learns Sogdian, or at least enough to communicate basic needs. He learns about Central Asian customs, about the etiquette required when trading with different peoples. He learns about Buddhism, a religion from India that has spread along the Silk Road. The Sogdians are mostly Buddhist, though they also maintain older practices honoring their ancestors and various spirits. Marcus visits a Buddhist monastery on the edge of the city. The monks welcome him, offering tea and conversation. Through an interpreter, a monk explains the basic teachings, that all life is suffering, that suffering is caused by desire, that the path to ending suffering is to let go of desire through meditation and right living. Marcus finds the ideas both attractive and troubling. Attractive because they offer a kind of peace, a way to accept the world as it is rather than constantly striving for more. Troubling because his entire journey is driven by desire. Desire to see, to know, to achieve. If he followed this teaching, he would never have left Rome. He would be content with what he had. Yet he also recognizes that the monk is happy, perhaps more genuinely happy than Marcus has ever been. The monk has less. No possessions, no family, no prospects of wealth, but he seems to possess a completeness, a centeredness that Marcus lacks. It is another lesson in the varieties of human experience, the many ways to find meaning. The Sogdian caravan that Marcus joins numbers 80 people and 150 animals, not just camels now, but also horses and yaks. The yaks will be essential in the mountains ahead, able to carry loads at altitudes where other animals fail. They travel northeast from Merv, reaching the Oxus River, the Amu Darya, after 10 days. The Oxus is one of the great rivers of Central Asia, flowing from the Pamir Mountains northwest toward the Aral Sea. In ancient times, the river was considered the boundary between Persia and the lands beyond. Crossing it means entering the Kushan Empire, entering a realm where Persian influence fades and Indian and Chinese influences grow stronger. The crossing is accomplished by boat, the animals swimming alongside while their loads are ferried separately. The river is swift, dangerous. 2 camels are lost to the current despite the efforts of the boatmen. Their loads are lost with them. The Sogdian merchants take the loss philosophically. It is simply the cost of doing business, an expected risk. On the eastern bank, they pay customs duties to Kushan officials. The Kushans are descendants of nomadic peoples from the steppes who conquered this region centuries ago. They have adopted many customs from the peoples they conquered, Indian, Persian, Greek, while maintaining some of their own traditions. The result is another hybrid culture, another example of the mixing that defines the Silk Road. The caravan follows the river upstream, moving gradually into higher elevations. The landscape becomes more dramatic. Hills become mountains, settlements become scarcer, the air becomes thinner. They pass through the great trading cities of Transoxiana, Bukhara, and Samarkand. These cities are legendary among merchants. Samarkand especially is considered a jewel of Central Asia, a place where East and West meet, where goods and ideas from across the world intermingle. Samarkand in the 2nd century CE is approaching the height of its power and wealth. The city sits at the crossroads of trade routes running north-south and east-west. Almost every luxury good known to the ancient world passes through Samarkand at some point. The markets are astonishing. Marcus sees Indian jewels, Chinese silk, Russian furs, Baltic amber, Mediterranean coral, African ivory. He sees merchants from a dozen different lands, hears languages he cannot identify. The city itself is beautiful in a way different from Rome or Antioch or Merv. The architecture combines elements from many traditions. Buildings are decorated with intricate tile work in blues and greens. Gardens within the city are meticulously maintained, offering refuge from summer heat. The ruling class includes Sogdians, Kushans, and Persians, creating a cosmopolitan elite. Marcus remains in Samarkand for a month. He sells more of his remaining glass and spices. He buys goods to trade further east, Persian carpets, which are prized in China, amber from the Baltic, which has reached Samarkand through the northern trade routes. coral from the Mediterranean, which the Chinese consider more valuable than jade. He also prepares mentally for what lies ahead. Everyone he speaks to emphasizes the difficulty of the journey into the Pamirs. The mountains are not just physically challenging, but spiritually challenging. Travelers speak of strange experiences at high altitudes, visions, dreams that seem more real than waking life, a sense of disconnection from normal reality. The caravan departs Samarkand in early autumn, the only season when the high passes are reliably open. They travel southeast, climbing steadily. The landscape transforms from agricultural plains to rugged foothills to genuine mountains. The peaks ahead are white with eternal snow. The Pamir Mountains are unlike anything Marcus has experienced. They are not just tall. Though some peaks rise over 20,000 feet, they are vast, range after range stretching in all directions, valleys deep and narrow, rivers rushing through gorges, glaciers clinging to slopes. The caravan follows ancient paths that climb to passes at 15,000 feet, altitudes where breathing becomes difficult, where every step requires effort. The thin air creates a strange euphoria mixed with exhaustion. Some travelers experience headaches, nausea, confusion. One Sogdian merchant becomes seriously ill and must be left at a small settlement to recover, hoping to catch a later caravan. At night, the cold is intense. Even in late summer, temperatures drop below freezing. The travelers huddle around fires burning dried yak dung, the only fuel available at this altitude. The fires provide warmth, but little heat, barely enough to keep frostbite at bay. But the vistas are magnificent beyond description. Marcus sees views that few humans have ever witnessed, valleys opening thousands of feet below, peaks that seem to float above the clouds, lakes of impossible blue, fed by glaciers, perfectly still in the thin air. He sees Marco Polo's sheep, massive, wild sheep with curling horns, adapted to life at these altitudes. He sees golden eagles hunting marmots on rocky slopes. He sees evidence of snow leopards, tracks in snow, but never the animals themselves, which are elusive as ghosts. The crossing of the Pamirs takes 6 weeks. 6 weeks of climbing, descending, climbing again. 6 weeks of cold that penetrates every layer of clothing. 6 weeks of thin air and brilliant sun that burns exposed skin despite the cold. 6 weeks of trudging through a landscape that seems more alien than earthly. When they finally descend the eastern slopes into the Tarim Basin, it feels like returning to life. The air thickens. Breathing becomes easier. The terrible cold releases its grip. They have crossed the roof of the world and survived. Below them stretches the Tarim Basin, a vast depression surrounded by mountains. And in the center of the basin, invisible from this distance but present in everyone's thoughts, lies the Taklamakan Desert. The Tarim Basin is ringed by oasis cities that serve as staging points for crossing the desert. The caravan descends to Kashgar, the westernmost of these cities. Kashgar sits at the junction of 2 routes, the northern route that follows the northern edge of the Taklamakan and the southern route that follows the southern edge. Both routes are dangerous. Both require careful timing, adequate supplies, and favorable conditions. Kashgar, in the 2nd century CE, is a thriving trade center, a place where goods from China meet goods from the West. The city is under the nominal control of the Kushan Empire, but in practice it is semi-independent, ruled by local lords who profit from the trade passing through. The culture here is different from anything Marcus has experienced. The people are a mixture of indigenous Tarim Basin inhabitants, Sogdian traders, and various nomadic groups from the steppes. The languages spoken include Sogdian, various Iranian languages, Chinese, and local Tarim Basin languages that exist nowhere else. The religions practiced include Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, shamanism, and ancestor worship. Marcus will remain in Kashgar for 2 months, waiting for a caravan willing to attempt the desert crossing. Not all caravans attempt it. Many terminate at Kashgar, their merchants selling their goods to Chinese traders who have come from the east. But Marcus has come too far to stop now. During his time in Kashgar, Marcus studies what little Chinese he can learn. The language is utterly unlike anything he has encountered. Instead of an alphabet, the Chinese use characters, symbols that represent entire words or concepts. There are thousands of these characters. Becoming literate in Chinese requires memorizing them, a process that takes years. A Sogdian merchant who speaks Chinese gives Marcus basic instruction. "Learn these characters," the merchant says, showing Marcus about 20 symbols. "This one means water. This one means food. This one means merchant. This one means silk." With these 20 characters, you can point to what you need and perhaps be understood. But do not imagine this makes you able to speak Chinese. Chinese is a tonal language. The same sound can mean different things depending on the pitch of your voice. And the written language is completely different from any spoken language. Even Chinese people from different regions cannot understand each other's speech, but they can all read the same characters. The complexity is daunting, but Marcus finds it fascinating. Each character is like a small picture, a compressed piece of information. The character for mountain looks like 3 peaks. The character for forest repeats the symbol for tree multiple times. There is a logic to it, a visual poetry. He also learns about Chinese silk production, though the Sogdians guard their knowledge carefully. The silk comes from caterpillars that eat only the leaves of white mulberry trees. The caterpillars are carefully cultivated, kept at specific temperatures, protected from predators and disease. When they form cocoons, the cocoons are harvested before the moth can emerge and break the silk thread. The cocoons are boiled to kill the chrysalis and loosen the silk. Then, skilled workers unwind the silk thread, which can be over 1 kilometer long from a single cocoon. Multiple threads are twisted together to create usable silk yarn. The yarn is then woven into fabric. The entire process requires specialized knowledge, careful attention, and significant labor. It is no wonder that silk is expensive, that its production has made China wealthy. Finally, in late autumn, a large caravan forms to attempt the desert crossing. The caravan will take the southern route, following the chain of oases along the southern edge of the Taklamakan. From Kashgar to Yarkand to Khotan to Nia to Churchen to Lulan to Dunhuang. The journey will take at least 2 months, probably longer. The preparations are meticulous. Each person must carry sufficient water for the stretches between oases. Some stretches are only 2 or 3 days, but others can be 6 or 7 days. Each camel is loaded with water bags in addition to trade goods. Food supplies are calculated carefully. Every ounce of weight matters, but so does having enough to survive if something goes wrong. The caravan master is a Khotanese merchant named Vijaya, a Buddhist who prays to the Buddha for protection before each journey. Vijaya has crossed the Taklamakan 12 times. He knows the routes, the dangers, the signs that predict sandstorms or changes in weather. The desert is alive, Vijaya tells the assembled merchants on the night before departure. Not alive like a person or animal, but alive like a god. It has moods. It has will. If the desert wants to kill you, it will find a way. Your only hope is to show respect, to move carefully, to not challenge it directly. We follow the old paths. We stop at the oases. We do not try to take shortcuts. We do not travel in storms. We do not travel at midday in summer. We survive by being cautious. The first stretch, Kashgar to Yarkand, is relatively easy. Yarkand is only about 100 miles, reached in 4 days. Yarkand is another oasis town, smaller than Kashgar, but prosperous. Here, they rest for 3 days, replenishing water supplies, checking equipment, allowing any travelers who have changed their minds to turn back. From Yarkand to Khotan is longer, about 200 miles, taking 8 days. The landscape becomes more severe. The sand is fine and pale, almost white. The dunes rise like frozen waves. The heat during the day is intense, though the nights are cold. The caravan travels mostly in early morning and late afternoon, resting during midday. Marcus learns the rhythm of desert travel. The hours of walking in silence, concentrating on putting one foot in front of the other. The relief of rest breaks, sitting in the shade of a camel, sipping water sparingly. The miracle of reaching an oasis, seeing green on the horizon, knowing that water and rest are near. But he also learns the dangers. One evening, a dust storm rises with terrifying speed. The sky turns brown, then black. Visibility drops to nothing. The wind howls, carrying sand that stings exposed skin and works its way into every crevice of clothing and equipment. The caravan stops immediately, camels forced to kneel in tight groups, travelers huddling against them for protection. They wrap cloth around their faces, trying to keep sand out of noses and mouths. The storm lasts 6 hours. When it finally passes, the landscape has changed. Dunes have shifted. The trail they were following is obliterated. Vijaya and the other experienced guides spend an hour determining their position by the sun and distant landmarks before the caravan can continue. One camel is found dead, having suffocated in the sand. Its load must be redistributed among the other animals. Everyone is shaken, reminded of how quickly the desert can turn deadly. Khotan is different from the other oasis cities. It is more prosperous, more cultured, more Chinese in character. Khotan, in the 2nd century CE, is a Buddhist kingdom, nominally independent, though increasingly influenced by Han Chinese power. The city is famous for its jade, mined in nearby mountains, and for its silk production. The people of Khotan have somehow obtained silkworm eggs and mulberry trees, breaking China's monopoly, though their silk is considered inferior to Chinese silk. Marcus spends 3 weeks in Khotan resting and trading. He sells his Persian carpets and amber here, receiving in exchange jade ornaments and rough silk thread. He visits Buddhist monasteries where monks from India, China, and Central Asia study together. He sees his first authentic Chinese goods, not silk that has passed through many hands, but porcelain, bronze mirrors, lacquerware, and paper brought directly from China. The paper especially fascinates him. It is thin, smooth, absorbent of ink, and relatively cheap to produce. The Chinese use it for official documents, for letters, for religious texts. It is far superior to papyrus and parchment. Marcus realizes that if he could bring the secret of paper-making to Rome, he would be wealthy beyond imagination. But like silk production, paper-making is a closely guarded secret. From Khotan, the route continues east along the southern edge of the Taklamakan, stopping at progressively smaller oases, Nia, Chang'an, Miran. These settlements are barely cities, more like fortified villages sustained by tiny streams fed by snow melt from the distant mountains. The populations are small, perhaps a few hundred people in each. They survive through a combination of subsistence agriculture, animal herding, and servicing the caravans that pass through. The people at these remote oases seem to exist outside normal time. They follow traditions so old that no one remembers their origins. They speak languages that are spoken nowhere else. They worship gods whose names have been forgotten in other lands. They are the descendants of peoples who inhabited the Tarim Basin before the Silk Road existed, before empires rose and fell around them. They persist. At one small oasis, Marcus can never remember its name, an old man invites him into his home for tea. The home is simple: mud brick walls, a beaten earth floor, a few pieces of furniture. But it is clean and welcoming. The old man speaks a language Marcus doesn't understand, but they communicate through gestures and smiles. The old man serves tea. A green tea that Marcus has never tasted before, brought from China. They sit in companionable silence, sipping tea, watching the sun set through the open doorway. In that moment, Marcus feels something he hasn't felt in months. Peace. Not the excitement of discovery, not the thrill of danger overcome, but simple peace. The peace of sitting with another human being, sharing tea, needing no words. When Marcus leaves, the old man gives him a small gift, a piece of jade, smooth and cool, carved in the shape of a horse. Marcus will carry this jade for the rest of his journey, and for the rest of his life. It will become his most treasured possession, worth more to him than all the silk and spices he eventually acquires. The caravan reaches Lulon in midwinter. Lulon is dying. Once a major city on the shores of a large lake, Lulon is now half abandoned as the lake shrinks and the desert advances. The lake, fed by the Tarim River, is drying up as the river changes course to the north. Without water, Lulon cannot survive, but Lulon is still important as the last major stop before the final push to Dunhuang and the edge of Chinese territory. The caravan rests here for 2 weeks, preparing for the last stretch of desert crossing. At Lulon, Marcus meets a Chinese merchant for the first time. The merchant's name is Zhang Wei. He has traveled from Dunhuang with a small caravan bringing Chinese goods to trade in the Tarim Basin. Zhang Wei speaks some Sogdian, learned from years of trading with Western merchants. "You are from Daqin?" Zhang Wei asks, using the Chinese name for Rome. "I have heard of Daqin, far to the west, land of gold and glass. Is it true that in Daqin rain falls from the sky?" Marcus laughs. "Yes, rain falls from the sky. Does it not rain in China?" "It rains," Zhang Wei says, "but I have heard that in Daqin, rain falls every day, that the land is always green, that rivers never dry. I see now this is an exaggeration. Everything we hear about the West is exaggerated. Everything you hear about China is probably exaggerated too. Though I promise you, our capital, Chang'an, is the greatest city in the world. This you will see." They trade information about the route ahead. Zhang Wei confirms that the way to Dunhuang is open, that Chinese authorities are currently welcoming foreign merchants. He warns that Chinese customs are strict, that behavior that is acceptable in Central Asia might be offensive in China. "The Chinese value order," Zhang Wei explains. "Everything has its proper place, its proper way. Show respect to officials. Do not raise your voice. Do not try to bargain aggressively. This is seen as rude. State your price, accept their price, or politely decline. The Chinese appreciate patience and indirect communication. They despise crude directness." Marcus absorbs this advice, realizing that he is entering a civilization as foreign to him as Rome would be to Jiang Wei. He has crossed thousands of miles, but the greatest gap may be cultural, not geographic. The final stretch from Luleng to Dunhuang takes 3 weeks. This is not sand desert, but gravel desert. Gobi, the Mongols call it. Flat expanses of stone and dust, bitterly cold in winter. The wind cuts like a knife. Water must be carried for the entire journey, as there are no reliable sources between the oases. But this is also where the journey's end comes into view. The mountains that mark the edge of the Taklamakan give way to different mountains. The Kilian Range, which marks the boundary of Chinese territory. Beyond those mountains lies the Gansu Corridor, the narrow strip of land that connects the Tarim Basin to the Chinese heartland. On the 21st day out from Luleng, they see it, the caves of Dunhuang carved into sandstone cliffs. Below the caves, the oasis of Dunhuang spreads across a valley, green against the brown and grey of the surrounding desert. And beyond Dunhuang, marking the absolute limit of Chinese territory, stands a gate in the mountains, Yumenguan, the Jade Gate, the western gateway to China. Dunhuang is where worlds meet. It is technically Chinese, administered by Han officials, but its population is mixed: Chinese, Sogdians, Tibetans, Tokharians, and others. It is a military garrison, a trading post, and a religious center. The caves in the cliffs are Buddhist temples, decorated with magnificent murals and filled with statues. Monks from India, Central Asia, and China come here to study, to translate texts, to meditate. Marcus enters Dunhuang 9 months after leaving Rome. 9 months of continuous travel. He has crossed 8,000 miles. He has traversed 3 major deserts, 2 major mountain ranges, and countless smaller barriers. He has nearly died from thirst, cold, and exhaustion. He has lost possessions, gained others, transformed his fortune from Roman gold to a collection of trade goods, jade, silk thread, spices, and information. But more than his possessions have changed, Marcus has changed. The man who enters Dunhuang is not the man who left Rome. He has learned languages, customs, ways of thinking that did not exist in his Roman world. He has learned that Rome, while great, is not the only great civilization. He has learned that the world is far larger, more diverse, more complex than he imagined. At Dunhuang, Marcus must make a decision. Chinese law prohibits foreign merchants from traveling freely within Chinese territory. Foreign traders are supposed to conduct their business at the frontier posts and return west. Only those with special permission, diplomatic missions, tribute bearers, or merchants with specific invitations are allowed to travel to Chinese cities. But Marcus has come too far to stop at the threshold. He has not crossed the world to turn back without seeing China itself. He needs to find a way through the Jade Gate and into the empire beyond. He spends 2 months in Dunhuang, seeking connections, making inquiries, building relationships with Chinese officials and merchants. He visits the Buddhist caves, making donations to the monasteries and speaking with the monks. He attends lectures on Buddhist philosophy. He demonstrates his Roman goods to Chinese merchants, showing the quality of Roman glass, the purity of Mediterranean coral, the colors of purple-dyed cloth. Gradually, he makes progress. A sympathetic Chinese merchant named Chen Ming agrees to sponsor Marcus's entry into China, claiming that Marcus has special goods that are desired by officials in the capital. It is a legal fiction, but one that Chinese bureaucracy will accept. In exchange, Marcus must give Chen Ming a portion of his trade goods, and pay various fees and bribes. The paperwork takes weeks. Forms must be filled out in Chinese characters, official seals must be applied, interviews must be conducted with minor officials who ask endless questions about Marcus's origins, purpose, and goods. Each step requires patience and small payments. But finally, in early spring, Marcus receives permission to travel to Wuwei, a Chinese garrison city in the Gansu corridor, with the possibility of continuing to Chang'an if his goods prove desirable. On a clear morning in March, Marcus passes through the Jade Gate. The gate itself is a modest structure, 2 watchtowers flanking a road through a mountain pass, but it represents an absolute boundary. On the western side is the world of the Silk Road, mixed cultures, loosely regulated trade, flexible borders. On the eastern side is China, centralized authority, strict regulations, a civilization that has existed for 2,000 years and sees itself as the center of the world. Marcus feels the weight of the moment. He is one of very few Romans to enter China. He may be the first to enter with the intention of returning to Rome with direct knowledge of this empire. The information he gathers here could change Roman understanding of the East, or it could die with him if he never makes it home. The thought is sobering but not frightening. He has accepted the risks. Now he wants only to see what lies beyond. The Gansu corridor is a strip of habitable land squeezed between the Tibetan Plateau to the south and the Gobi Desert to the north. It is the natural corridor between the Tarim Basin and the Chinese heartland, and it has been fortified and controlled by China for centuries. The Great Wall, or rather, extensions of what will later be called the Great Wall, runs along parts of the corridor, marking the frontier of Chinese territory. Marcus travels with a small caravan of Chinese merchants and Sogdian traders who have permanent residency in China. The journey from the Jade Gate to Wuwei takes 2 weeks. The landscape is a patchwork of farms, villages, military outposts, and Buddhist temples. The contrast with the desert is striking. Here, everything is ordered, organized, cultivated. Fields are irrigated through an elaborate system of canals. Villages are laid out in regular patterns. Roads are maintained. The Chinese presence is visible everywhere. Military patrols pass regularly. Official couriers gallop past on fast horses carrying documents between garrison commanders. At regular intervals, there are way stations where travelers can rest and resupply. The stations are run by the government, ensuring that official travelers have what they need. Private travelers can also use them for a fee. Marcus is struck by the level of organization. Rome is sophisticated, but this is different. This is a civilization that has perfected administration, that has created systems for managing vast territories and populations. Every aspect of society seems regulated, documented, controlled. At one way station, he witnesses a demonstration of the Chinese communication system. A courier arrives, exhausted from hard riding. He dismounts, hands his message pouch to a fresh courier who immediately gallops off. The entire exchange takes less than a minute. The system allows messages to travel from the frontier to the capital over 1,000 miles in less than a week. The emperor must know everything, Chenming explains. Every harvest, every bandit attack, every movement of barbarian tribes beyond the frontier. Information travels faster than any army. This is how China maintains order. Marcus realizes that this is a level of bureaucratic sophistication that Rome has not achieved. Rome's empire is held together by military power and cultural influence. China's empire is held together by these as well, but also by a vast administrative apparatus that reaches into every village, that records every transaction, that ensures that the emperor's will is implemented everywhere. Wuwei is a garrison city of about 50,000 people, modest by Chinese standards, but larger than many cities in the Roman Empire. It serves as a military headquarters for the western frontier, and as a commercial center for trade with the West. Marcus establishes himself in the Foreign Merchants' Quarter, a district where non-Chinese traders are permitted to live and conduct business. Here he meets merchants from across Asia, Sogdians who have lived in China for decades, Indians bringing cotton and gemstones, Koreans bringing furs and gold, and a few Persians who have made the long journey east. He spends 3 months in Wuwei, learning Chinese customs, improving his limited Chinese language skills, and trading goods. The Chinese merchants are interested in his Roman glass, which they consider exotic and beautiful. They are also interested in his Mediterranean coral, which they prize for its deep red color. In exchange, they offer silk direct from Chinese workshops at prices far below what the same silk costs in Rome. Marcus is allowed to visit a silk workshop, though he is carefully monitored to ensure he doesn't learn too much. He watches women at looms, their hands moving with practiced precision, creating fabric of extraordinary quality. He sees the dyeing process, where silk is colored with dyes derived from plants, minerals, and insects. He sees quality control, where officials examine each bolt of silk for flaws, assigning grades and prices based on quality. He tries to learn the secret of sericulture, how the silk is produced from beginning to end, but this information is carefully guarded. He learns that silkworms eat mulberry leaves, that they produce cocoons, that the cocoons are somehow processed to produce thread. But the details are kept from him. The Chinese know that their monopoly on silk production is their greatest economic advantage. They will not give it up easily. During this time, Marcus also learns about Chinese culture and philosophy. He attends a lecture by a Confucian scholar who explains the principles of proper conduct, filial piety, respect for authority, and the importance of education. He visits a Taoist temple where priests explain the concept of the Tao, the way, the natural order of the universe, which humans should align themselves with rather than resist. He is particularly struck by the Chinese reverence for learning and scholarship. In Rome, education is important for the elite, but in China, it seems to be a cultural obsession. Even relatively poor families ensure their sons learn to read and write. The civil service examination system means that any talented individual, regardless of birth, can potentially rise to high office through education. This is a radical idea to Marcus, who comes from a society where birth largely determines destiny. After 3 months, Chen Ming informs Marcus that he has secured permission for Marcus to travel to Chang'an, the capital. It is a rare privilege. Chang'an is the heart of the Han Empire, home to the emperor, the seat of government, the center of Chinese civilization. It is also one of the largest cities in the world, with a population approaching 500,000. The journey from Wuwei to Chang'an is about 700 miles, following the Wei River Valley eastward through the heartland of China. This is China's breadbasket, the agricultural core that feeds the empire. The landscape is a patchwork of rice paddies, wheat fields, and villages. Every piece of land is cultivated. The population density is unlike anything Marcus has experienced. Villages blend into each other. The road is always busy with traffic. They pass through several cities, each impressive in its own way. Tianshui, Baoji, Xianyang. These are ancient cities, some dating back over 1,000 years. They show the accumulation of Chinese civilization, layers of history, architecture that has been refined over centuries, markets that have operated for generations. At Xianyang, Marcus visits the site of the former Qin capital, where the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, ruled 2 centuries earlier. This emperor unified China, standardized writing and measurements, and began construction of the Great Wall. He also built a massive mausoleum guarded by thousands of terracotta warriors. though Marcus does not see these as they are buried and will not be discovered for over 2,000 years. The stories Marcus hears about this first emperor fascinate and disturb him. A man of ruthless ambition, who created a unified nation through force, who burned books to suppress dissenting ideas, who buried scholars alive to silence opposition, but who also created systems that allowed China to function as a unified state. The Chinese relationship with this emperor is complex. He is admired for what he achieved, but remembered for his cruelty. Finally, after 2 weeks of travel from Wu Wei, Marcus sees Chang'an. The city rises from the plain like a vision of perfection. The walls are massive, 30 feet high, 50 feet thick at the base, extending for 15 miles around the city. The gates are enormous structures with 3 passages each, guarded by towers that rise multiple stories. Inside the walls, Chang'an is laid out in a perfect grid. The main streets run north-south and east-west, dividing the city into wards. Each ward is itself walled and gated, creating cities within the city. At night, the ward gates close, restricting movement. In the northern part of the city, the Imperial Palace complex occupies over 2 square miles. A city within a city within a city. Marcus enters Chang'an 10 months after leaving Dunhuang, 20 months after leaving Rome. He has reached the end of the world, or rather, he has reached the beginning of a world he never knew existed. Chang'an is overwhelming in its scale and sophistication. The markets are vast, selling goods from across the empire and beyond. The Western market specializes in foreign goods. Marcus sees Indian cotton, Persian carpets, Central Asian furs, Korean ginseng, and goods from places whose names he doesn't recognize. The Eastern market serves local residents, selling food, cloth, tools, furniture, and everyday necessities. The market operates on a strict schedule, opening at dawn and closing at dusk. Prices are regulated by the government to prevent fraud. Weights and measures are standardized and regularly inspected. Marcus establishes himself in the foreign merchants district with Chen Ming's help. Here, he displays his remaining goods, his finest Roman glass pieces, his Mediterranean coral, some purple-dyed cloth he has carefully preserved. The Chinese merchants are intrigued. They have seen glass before. Chinese artisans produce their own glass, and some Roman glass has reached China through intermediaries, but they recognize the quality of Marcus's pieces. Over the following weeks, Marcus negotiates sales. Chinese merchant culture is different from what he knows. Negotiation is indirect, face-saving, patient. A merchant will examine goods carefully, then make an initial offer that seems insultingly low. Marcus has learned not to respond with anger, but to politely decline and suggest a higher price. The merchant will consider, then make a new offer. The process continues over multiple meetings, sometimes taking days, but gradually prices converge. Marcus sells his glass for prices that, even after accounting for all expenses, will make him wealthy if he can return to Rome. He reinvests much of his profit into silk, buying the finest grades of silk directly from Chinese workshops at prices that are, by Roman standards, almost nothing. He buys other goods as well: porcelain dishes, bronze mirrors, lacquerware, paper, and samples of Chinese medicines. But more than trade goods, Marcus buys knowledge. He spends time with scholars, with officials, with anyone willing to teach him about China. He learns about Chinese history, which stretches back through the Han dynasty to the Zhou, Shang, and Xia dynasties, a continuity of civilization spanning nearly 2,000 years. He learns about Chinese philosophy, the Confucian emphasis on social order and proper conduct, the Taoist celebration of natural spontaneity, the Buddhist path to enlightenment that has been imported from India but is now becoming thoroughly Chinese. He learns about Chinese technology. The Chinese have invented paper, as he already knew, but they have also invented a seismograph that can detect earthquakes from hundreds of miles away. They have developed advanced bronze-working techniques, creating vessels and mirrors of extraordinary quality. They have perfected the production of lacquerware, coating wood with layers of resin that create a surface harder than wood, waterproof and beautiful. He visits the Imperial University, where thousands of students study the Confucian classics in preparation for the civil service examinations. He attends lectures on astronomy, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy. He realizes that Chinese science, while different from Greek science, is equally sophisticated in its own way. Where Greeks seek universal principles, Chinese seek practical knowledge and classification of natural phenomena. He visits Buddhist temples where monks practice meditation and study Sanskrit texts brought from India along the Silk Road. Buddhism is relatively new to China, only a few centuries old, but it is growing rapidly, appealing to both common people and intellectuals. The Chinese are adapting Buddhist ideas to their own cultural context, creating something new. He visits Taoist temples where priests practice internal alchemy, techniques for prolonging life and achieving immortality through meditation, breathing exercises, and herbal medicines. Some of these practices seem magical to Marcus. Others seem like genuine medical knowledge. He cannot always tell the difference. Marcus never meets the emperor. Only the highest officials and foreign diplomats are granted such audiences. But he sees the imperial procession once when the emperor travels from the palace to perform sacrifices at the Temple of Heaven. The spectacle is overwhelming. Thousands of guards, musicians, dancers, officials, all moving in perfect formation. The emperor himself is barely visible, surrounded by courtiers and protected by elaborate screens. The display of power is unlike anything Marcus has seen in Rome. Rome shows power through military might and architectural grandeur. China shows power through order, ceremony, and the visible implementation of hierarchy. Every person has a place, every action has a meaning, every gesture communicates status and relationship. Marcus spends 6 months in Chang'an. 6 months of learning, trading, observing. He fills notebooks with observations, sketches, and information. He realizes that much of what Romans believe about China is wrong. The Chinese are not giants. They are not exotic creatures. They are people, like Romans, who have built a great civilization through the same human capacities for organization, learning, and creativity that built Rome. But they have done it differently. Their language is different. Their writing is different. Their philosophy is different. Their aesthetics are different. Their values are different. Yet they have achieved comparable results: a stable empire, sophisticated cities, advanced technology, rich culture. The lesson Marcus takes from this is humbling: that there are multiple paths to civilization, that Rome's way is not the only way, that greatness can be achieved through different means. It challenges his Roman assumption of superiority. It makes him see his own culture from outside as one culture among many, rather than as the pinnacle of human achievement. In the autumn of his 2nd year since leaving Rome, Marcus decides it is time to return. He has accomplished what he set out to do. He has seen China. He has acquired trade goods that will make him wealthy. He has gained knowledge that is unprecedented among Romans. If he stays longer, he risks losing everything to disease, accident, or the simple attrition of a long journey home. He sells his remaining Roman goods, converts everything to silk and other portable Chinese products, and prepares for the return journey. Chen Ming has agreed to guide him back to Dunhuang, where Marcus will rejoin a westbound caravan. The parting from Chang'an is bittersweet. Marcus has grown fond of this strange city, these strange people. He has made friends among the Chinese merchants and scholars who have taught him so much. They give him gifts for his journey, fine silk for his personal use, books written in Chinese that he cannot read but hopes to learn from, jade ornaments, and most precious of all, a letter of introduction from a Chinese official stating that Marcus Fabius Severus of Daqin has conducted himself honorably in China and should be welcomed if he returns. The return journey is faster than the eastward journey. Marcus knows the route now. He knows what to expect, how to prepare, what dangers to watch for. More importantly, he is traveling with experienced merchants who make this journey regularly. The organization is better, the efficiency is higher, but the journey is no less dangerous. The same deserts must be crossed, the same mountains must be climbed, the same bandits must be negotiated with or avoided. If anything, the return is more dangerous because Marcus now carries valuable goods that make him a target. The return crossing of the Taklamakan takes 8 weeks, following the northern route this time. The northern route passes through different oases: Turpan, Korla, Kucha, Aksu, Kashgar. Each has its own character, its own mixture of cultures. Marcus sees Kucha for the first time, a wealthy city famous for its musicians and Buddhist scholarship. He hears Kuchan music, which combines Indian, Chinese, and Central Asian elements. He visits Buddhist cave temples carved into mountains decorated with murals showing scenes from the Buddha's life and teachings. At Aksu, the caravan is delayed by a sandstorm that lasts 3 days. At Kashgar, they wait 2 weeks for favorable weather before attempting the Pamir crossing. The high passes are even more difficult on the return journey because it is now winter. The cold is intense, the snow is deep, and several times they must wait out storms before continuing. One night in the high Pamirs, huddled in a shelter barely adequate against the cold, Marcus reflects on his journey. He has been traveling for over 2 years now. 2 years since he left Rome. 2 years of constantly moving, never settling, always pushing forward or backward. He realizes that the journey itself has become a kind of home. The caravan, the road, the constant negotiation with distance and difficulty. This has become his normal life. He wonders if he can return to Rome and resume a normal life. Will he be content to stay in one place, to conduct business within the city, to never see new horizons? Or has the journey changed him too fundamentally? Is he now one of those merchants who must keep moving, who can only find meaning in the next journey, the next destination? He does not have answers. He only knows that for now, he must complete this journey. He must return home, at least to see what home has become after 2 years and 8,000 miles. The return passage through Central Asia is swift. Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, cities that seemed exotic on the outward journey now seem almost familiar. Marcus has friends in these cities now, merchants he has traded with, people who remember him. The loneliness of the outward journey is replaced by a network of relationships. At Merv, he learns news from the West. There has been a plague in Roman territory, a serious epidemic that has killed many. The Parthian Empire is destabilized by succession disputes. There have been renewed conflicts along the Euphrates frontier. The news makes Marcus anxious. If war has broken out, the route west might be closed. He might be stranded in Merv indefinitely. But Odenathus, who is still operating from Merv, reassures him. The route is always dangerous, Odenathus says. Always there are rumors of war. But the merchants keep moving, and where merchants move, the road stays open. We are neutral. We pay everyone. Rome accepts us. Parthia accepts us. As long as we are useful to both sides let us pass. Marcus joins Odaenathus's caravan for the journey back to Palmyra. They depart Merv in early spring, 2 years and 1 month after Marcus first arrived there on his outward journey. The route west is the reverse of the route east, across the Iranian plateau, through the Zagros Mountains, down to Ctesiphon and the Euphrates, across Mesopotamia, through the Syrian desert to Palmyra. The landscape that seemed so foreign on the outward journey now seems almost familiar. Marcus recognizes landmarks, remembers springs and campsites, recalls stories told at various stops. The journey that was once an adventure into the unknown has become a simple trip home. But the world has not stayed the same. At Ctesiphon, Marcus learns that Emperor Antoninus Pius has died, succeeded by Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus. The new co-emperors are Stoic philosophers, men of learning and principle. There is hope that their reign will be peaceful and just. But there is also news of the plague. It has reached Roman territory from the east, possibly from Parthia, possibly from further east. The disease causes fever, pustules, and often death. It is spreading through the empire, killing soldiers and civilians alike. Some call it divine punishment. Others call it a natural disaster. No one knows how to stop it. Marcus realizes that the world he left is not the world he is returning to. The stable, prosperous empire of Antoninus Pius's reign is giving way to something more uncertain. The plague will reshape the Mediterranean world, weakening Rome, disrupting trade, changing demographics. The consequences will echo for centuries. The caravan crosses the Euphrates without incident and continues west through Mesopotamia. The journey that took months on the outward journey takes weeks on the return. Marcus and the other merchants know the route, know what to expect, move efficiently. They reach Palmyra in late spring, 2 years and 4 months after Marcus first departed from there. Palmyra seems unchanged. The same great colonnaded street, the same bustling markets, the same mixture of east and west. But Marcus has changed. The young merchant who left Palmyra uncertain and ambitious has been replaced by a traveled man who has seen the extent of the world. From Palmyra, the final leg to Antioch, and then the Mediterranean crossing to Rome is almost trivial. Marcus has crossed the world. The 300-mile desert crossing to Antioch is nothing. The 2-week sea voyage is nothing. These final segments feel like an epilogue to the real journey. He reaches Antioch in early summer and books passage on a grain ship returning to Rome. The ship departs within a week. The crossing is smooth, uneventful. Marcus spends the journey organizing his thoughts, his records, his goods. He has detailed notes on every city he visited, every culture he encountered, every trade route he followed. He has samples of Chinese silk, porcelain, jade, and paper. He has stories that will astound Romans who have never traveled beyond Italy. On the final night before reaching Rome, Marcus stands on deck watching the sun set over the Mediterranean. The same sea he crossed 2.5 years ago, heading east into the unknown. The same sun that has risen and set over 8,000 miles of desert, mountain, and plain. He thinks about what he has learned, not just about China and the East, but about himself, about humanity, about civilization. He has learned that the world is larger and more diverse than he imagined. He has learned that every culture believes itself to be the center of the world, that every people considers its own customs natural and others strange. He has learned that humans everywhere face the same fundamental challenges: how to survive, how to thrive, how to find meaning, and that they solve these challenges in wonderfully different ways. He has learned that trade is not just about goods, but about ideas. The Silk Road doesn't just carry silk from China to Rome and glass from Rome to China. It carries Buddhism from India to China, Zoroastrianism from Persia to Central Asia, Christianity from Rome to the East. It carries technologies, techniques, stories, and understanding. He has learned that the barriers between cultures are both real and artificial. Languages differ, customs differ, values differ. But underneath these differences, humans remain fundamentally similar. The Chinese merchant worried about his family is not so different from the Roman merchant worried about his. The Buddhist monk seeking enlightenment is not so different from the Christian monk seeking salvation. The differences matter, but the similarities matter more. In his hand, Marcus holds the small jade horse given to him by the old man in the remote desert oasis. He still doesn't know the old man's name. He will never see him again. But in that moment of shared tea, of simple hospitality offered without expectation of reward, Marcus experienced something profound. A connection across barriers of language and culture, a recognition of shared humanity. This jade horse, worth perhaps a few silver coins, is more valuable to him than the hundreds of pounds of silk he carries. It represents what the journey has meant, not the profit, not the adventure, but the understanding that the world is full of people worth knowing, that every culture has wisdom worth learning, that the horizons we see are always just the beginning of further horizons. Rome appears on the morning of the third day at sea. The city spreads across its 7 hills, marble temples catching the morning sun, smoke rising from a million fires. It looks smaller than Marcus remembers. Not physically smaller, but smaller in significance. It is no longer the center of the world in his mind. It is one great city among several. Chang'an is its equal, perhaps its superior. Ctesiphon and Samarkand are magnificent in their own ways. Even small cities like Merv and Khotan have their own greatness. But it is still home. Marcus feels the pull of familiar streets, familiar language, familiar customs. He is ready to stop moving, at least for a while. He is ready to sleep in a bed that doesn't rock with ship motion or sit on desert sand. He is ready to eat Roman food, to speak Latin without having to think about it, to rejoin the society he left behind. The ship docks at Ostia. Marcus arranges for his goods to be transported to Rome and stored in warehouses near the Forum. He walks through the city streets, amazed at how familiar and strange they seem simultaneously. The buildings are the same, but his eyes are different. He sees Rome now as a Chinese visitor might see it, impressive but alien, powerful but not universal, great but not unique. He visits the Forum where his journey began. The same crowds throng the space, the same merchants hawk their goods, the same senators and philosophers debate in the shade of porticos. Everything is the same, yet everything is different, because Marcus is different. He begins the process of selling his silk and Chinese goods. The prices he gets are extraordinary. Even after paying all the intermediaries, taxes, and fees, he makes 10 times his original investment. He is now a wealthy man by Roman standards. He could retire, live comfortably for the rest of his life. But wealth is not what the journey was about. Marcus knows this now. The gold he accumulates is less valuable than the knowledge he carries. Over the following months, he writes an account of his journey, describing the cities he visited, the peoples he encountered, the distances he covered. The account is detailed and practical, intended to help other merchants who might attempt the journey. But it also contains his reflections on what he learned, his observations about different cultures, his thoughts on the nature of civilization. The account will survive, copied and passed down through generations. Future travelers will read it and follow his route. Historians will study it to understand the ancient world. geographers will use it to map the connections between East and West. Marcus Fabius Severus will be remembered not as a wealthy merchant, but as one of the few who bridged the gap between Rome and China, who saw both ends of the Silk Road and returned to tell the tale. But Marcus himself knows that the written account cannot capture everything. It cannot capture the taste of tea in a desert oasis, the sound of wind in the high passes of the Pamirs, the sight of sunrise over Chang'an. It cannot capture the feeling of walking toward unknown horizons, the fear and excitement of leaving everything familiar behind, the satisfaction of overcoming difficulties that seemed insurmountable. These things can only be experienced, not described. The journey cannot be taken second-hand. Anyone who wants to know what Marcus knows must make their own journey, must face their own challenges, must transform themselves through their own encounters with the world beyond. And perhaps that is the final lesson. That knowledge is not just information, but experience. That wisdom cannot be taught, but must be lived. That the greatest journeys change, not just where we are, but who we are. As night falls over Rome, Marcus stands at his window looking east. Somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond seas and deserts and mountains, lies China. The Silk Road stretches between here and there, 8,000 miles of danger and wonder, connecting two worlds that barely know each other exists. Other merchants will make the journey. Some will succeed, some will fail. Trade will continue, goods will flow, cultures will interact. But for Marcus, the great journey is complete. He has walked the Silk Road from end to end. He has seen wonders that most Romans will never see. He has returned with riches and with knowledge. But more than that, he has returned with understanding. Understanding that the world is vast, that humanity is diverse, that civilization takes many forms, all of them valid, all of them worthy of respect. He has returned changed, and in changing, he has become more fully human. He has learned that being Roman is not the only way to be civilized, that Rome's values are not the only values worth holding, that the Roman perspective is not the only perspective worth considering. This does not make him less Roman. It makes him a better Roman, one who understands his own culture more deeply because he has seen it from outside, who appreciates Rome more fully because he knows what it has achieved in comparison to other great civilizations. The stars above Rome are the same stars that shine above Chang'an, above Samarkand, above Palmyra, above every city and desert and mountain Marcus crossed. The same stars that guided ancient travelers before him and will guide future travelers after him. The same stars that connect us all, despite the distances that separate us. Under these stars, Marcus closes his eyes, finally at rest after 2.5 years of continuous travel. He has walked the Silk Road, and the Silk Road has walked through him, changing him in ways he is still discovering. Tomorrow he will wake in Rome, in his own home, in familiar surroundings, but he will carry the journey with him for the rest of his life. He will carry the memories, the knowledge, the understanding. He will carry the jade horse, reminder of human kindness in a desert oasis. He will carry the awareness that the world is larger and more wonderful than anyone can imagine. For now, he sleeps. He dreams of distant cities and desert horizons, of mountain passes and oasis gardens, of the long road that led him across the world and back again. He dreams of the Silk Road, that miraculous thread connecting east and west, carrying more than silk, carrying hope and wonder, and the endless human desire to see what lies beyond. And in the morning, Rome continues. The markets open, the senators debate, the temples fill with worshippers. Life goes on, as it always does in the eternal city. But somewhere in that city, a merchant who has seen the ends of the earth wakes with new eyes, ready to share what he has learned with anyone willing to listen. The journey is complete. The circle is closed. But the story continues, carried forward by every person who dreams of distant horizons, who wonders what lies beyond, who dares to take that first step into the unknown. The Silk Road stretches still, waiting for the next traveler.